Hello and welcome to what is now episode 5 already of our weekly vlogcast CancerFace. And this week we're going to start by going straight into your correspondence, because this week we have, don't we? We have a letter from America, as the Proclaimers used to sing so many years ago. And this is nice, isn't it? And look, it's got a nice American stamp on there, lad. We can add that to your stamp collection, can't we? Put it in your little book. So, this is our first international correspondence and shows what an international phenomena we are becoming. And it's from a Dwayne Edwards, who's the legal office of Brown's Beans, Akron, Ohio. That's where we mentioned a Brown's Beans, didn't we? Hypothetically last week. Anyway, dear Mr. Morton, RE Akron County Cease and Desist, motion number 732093. Notice is hereby given that you must cease all reference to our product in your depressing little vlogcast. Our beans have the highest nutritional value and in no way have been associated with any causes of cancer. Well, we didn't say cause cancer. Any future reference will be treated as contempt of court and will be appropriately dealt with. Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because that kind of chimes, doesn't it, with a conversation that we've been having over the past week. We've been thinking that perhaps last week we were being a little optimistic, thinking that we might become an influencer and get paid for advertising products. We thought we might actually be more realistic to end up becoming a kind of negative influencer, whereby firms might pay us not to have their products on display or associated with the vlogcast in any way, for fear of damaging their sales through association. Kind of commercial blackmail, if you like, which apparently is how capitalism works these days. So we'll give that some further thought. So the past 7 days, well, on the tongue cancer front, I got a letter asking me to go in for an appointment this coming Thursday. So we'll find out then what was discovered with the biopsy and what the kind of treatment regime is likely to be. That was on Monday, and on Wednesday, on the bladder cancer front, I went and had my final BCG treatment. So this week I thought I'd just describe the bladder cancer process a bit, because I know that's kind of, well, we know actually from the data we get back from YouTube, which is combined with all this kind of Facebook stuff and this Cambridge Analytica stuff, we know there's a small group of you who, well, we call them the ghoul squad, don't we, Nubbsy? The kind of ghoulish people who kind of, want to see some kind of progressive deterioration over the weeks, and are very interested in the treatment side of things. And apparently, although they're a small group, research showed that this is the group that is likely to stick with the vlogcast over the coming weeks and months, and likely to grow in size. So we're quite keen to keep you on board. So we'll describe the bladder cancer, and then what I'll do is perhaps offer a little bit of unsolicited advice at the end on how to talk to us cancer patients, because I know it's something that with correspondence quite a lot of you worry about. So bladder cancer, well, I first noticed a kind of pinkish tinge to my urine last November. It was quite early November. We were in London at the time, and one urine came out kind of quite pinkish, and then the next urine came out like it was like I was passing red wine or something. It was pure blood, and then it went back to being pinkish again, and then it went back to being totally normal, and returned to normal and stayed normal for a few weeks. So I will say to everybody watching that if you ever notice blood in your urine, even if it's pinkish blood in your urine, and you're not 100% certain what's causing it, then go and see your doctor immediately. because I lost 2.5 months really during that period when my urine returned to normal, but then it started to go red again in January, middle of January. So I went to the GP. She thought at first, not unreasonably, I think that it might well be the prostate, and she did what they call, I think it's a PSA test, but that came back normal. So on the 6th of February I went for a cystoscopy in Morton, which is where basically they pass a small camera and that's up and they put it up your urethra so that they can see into your bladder. So obviously they could only get a small camera up there. And there in living technicolor on the screen, and you're conscious throughout all this, you just have a local anaesthetic. You can see on the screen what the camera is showing. It is magnified, but even though it was magnified, it showed that there was a large tumour there. So I was booked in for what's called a very urgent TURBT, which is a transurethral resection of the bladder tumour, which I went in for on the 19th of February. It was the same evening that Liverpool were playing at home to Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and I missed that game because I was in hospital, but thankfully that was a 0-0 draw, rather dull, and I was out for the much more exciting second leg a few weeks later. So one night in hospital. First operation I'd had for 50 years, since I was a child, and I'd totally underestimated how groggy I would feel. It really kind of knocked me for six. They told me that the tumour was relatively large, and obviously that they cut it off and then dragged it out the urethra, and it was 108 grams, I was told. But the very nice and very approachable consultant fellow who I'm seeing explained it was kind of like a tree. So although the tumour was large, the area of contact with the bladder wall, which is kind of where the trunk meets the soil, if you like, was relatively small, and crucially it hadn't gone into the bladder wall. So there seems to be a reasonable chance that I might hang on to my bladder, which would be good. The couple of weeks later I had to go back in and they did what they call a re-resection, and that was to just double check the area, and they found no remaining cancer in the bladder wall or anywhere around. So I moved on to this thing called BCG treatment, which I went to for 6 consecutive Wednesdays. And basically I pop along to Scarborough Hospital, and I then go into the room after. Sometimes there's wait, of course, there's a bit of a queue sometimes. A couple of nurses in there, and basically I drop my trousers and lie on the couch, and they empty any remaining urine out of my bladder, and then they squirt in this BCG, which is what they used for, or still do use, I think, for tuberculosis vaccine. How on earth they came across the fact this works for bladder cancer, I don't know. But someone thought, well, must have thought, let's squirt that up someone's urethra and see if it works. And clearly it seems to, in a good percentage of cases. So I've got to, it's all over and done with in about 5 or 10 minutes. The nurses are very good, and we chat about the weather or whatever's been in the news while they perform this kind of rather strange, intimate procedure. And then all I have to do is try and not pass urine for 2 hours, and hold it in my bladder, which is fairly easily done. I don't have any drinks that morning. And so after being there about 5 or 10 minutes in the room with them, off I potter home again. Side effects wise, I think I've got off pretty lightly. Some people get really bad cystitis and have this terrible sensation. It's like pissing razor blades all the time. But although I've had some discomfort, I've had nothing as bad as that this time. you tend to feel, they talk about you having flu-like symptoms, and you do tend to feel fairly shitty really for about 24 hours. But it's a very small price to pay for what could be a very big benefit. It's got a good success rate, either in stopping the cancer coming back altogether, or if it does come back, it tends to be a kind of reduced grade and severity, as it were. So I've got to wait a couple of months now, a bit longer probably if I'm having chemo, and then I'll go back up again with the camera and see if it's worked. And if it has worked, I've got to have it weekly for 3 weeks at a time, once every 6 months for 2.5 years. And if it hasn't worked, then I guess they'll have to remove the bladder. So that's where we are with cancer treatment, with the bladder treatment I should say, and that's probably about it for now. And it's really over to the throat cancer will be taking centre stage. So just a quick mention, I think a couple of you mentioned some discomfort about how to talk to the cancer patient, and I understand this, and I've obviously known people who had cancer in the past and felt very anxious inside about how I should be, what's the best way, what's the most helpful way, what's the right way to kind of talk to them. Should I broach the subject? Should I not broach the subject? Are they fed up with talking about it? Do they mind if people don't talk about it, etc.? So I thought that now that I'm an expert with 2 cancers, I'd pass on some hints and tips. And the first thing is, I think that everybody who hasn't got cancer needs to be aware of, particularly when they're talking for the first time to the person with cancer, is that you cannot really get it right. Because as I say, if you talk about, if you say, how are you, or not so bad, how are you, at some point, if you ignore the cancer completely and start to, oh, I'm not so bad, thank you, I had an interesting game of tennis yesterday, blah, 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 then as a cancer patient, I'm going to think, oh my goodness me, this person, how insensitive that they can just talk about everything willy-nilly when there's this huge elephant in the room, which is my cancer, and they're just not talking about it. But equally, if you do talk about it, if you say, oh, how was the treatment yesterday or something like that, it's very easy for me to perceive that as being over-intrusive and is that really your business? So the first thing, keep this in mind, is that when you're talking to the person with cancer, you can't really win. And the second thing is that we will be judging you all the time, and we will chat. I mean, my wife and I will chat about everybody that I've met who's either spoken about it or not spoken about it, and we'll form a judgment either way, and it'll probably be pretty harsh. And the third thing I think to remember is, do not underestimate how terribly envious we feel as cancer patients towards you people without a cancer diagnosis. A deep envy. And as with all envy, of course, all envy is tinged with hatred. And that's an inevitable part of the condition. So I think when you're going to talk to the cancer patient, remember those 3 things. You can't win, they're going to judge you probably quite badly, and they are full of hatred towards you. And if you keep those 3 things in mind, and I don't think you can go far wrong. So I hope that's helpful. I'll come up with some more unsolicited advice for you next time. But in the meantime, have a good week. And next week I will tell you all about the results of my throat biopsy, which is making me sound a bit funny already. Thanks very much. Goodbye.